Analogy I like to use here, it's a bit like when you drive.
Yeah.
And it says the business is far too manual. You know, like every gear change is dependent on you. Well, if we're going a step further from me, it's all about we rather than me. Well, therefore, that presupposes that we need a we. Do you have a recipe from start to finish that allows someone to go from not knowing how to do it to completely having the job done to the standard you would actually expect?
Are you feeling like your practice's success depends on you and you simply can't step away without the wheels falling off? Well, if so, you're not alone. That's where we are headed in today's podcast episode, and we're going to solve it for you. Let's dive in. So let's jump in. Welcome to today's podcast. I'm Tristan, founder of Practice Acceleration, and I have Dave McDonald, king of cleverness, king of handsomeness, Captain Courageous, and today we're talking about how do we decrease a practice's dependence on you as the owner so that you can be less stressed, you can step away without the wheels falling off? Kind of a big deal. Why are we jumping into this, Dave? Why is this a thing?
I love how we're advanced. We're clever, handsome now. Captain Courageous.
I know, you're like a triple threat. You're the Zac Efron at Practice Acceleration. And you can dance.
Nice. Captain Courageous. I like how you've added that point because I think it's really important about today's session anyway, because for practice owners, I think you do have to embrace being courageous.
The definition of courage is to do something, even if it doesn't feel good, and do it anyway, right?
Yes, it's Susan Jeffers, feel the fear and do it anyway.
Oh, I like that.
It's a book in check it out. But yeah, look, it's so important. I think this is a really looking forward to this episode because it's so common in all the practice owners that we work with day to day. And I just kind of wanted to, the true stress test of or true stress dependency test is how long can any practice owner spend away from the business and the business not break? And unfortunately for some people, lunch break has a new meaning.
Yeah, lunch break. Lunch break at lunch.
Lunch break, yes. It's like, hey, I'm going to go to lunch. 30 minutes later, they come back and there's mess.
What's happened?
Clean up on aisle 3.
Yeah. Yep, 100%. And I can relate to that, like back in the early days of my physical therapy practice. And we know that our clients come into our program, like that's often a reality for them when they first join us. And it's not what we want. So if we're thinking about like dependency issues and the problems that we're trying to solve and how there is that dependency on the owner, let's think about like how do practices depend on the owner? And the first one I think of is, if you're a practice owner right now, which you are, that's why you're listening to this, is perhaps the revenue is dependent on you. Like if we take the owner out, revenue falls off. Like they do the high-end work, clients want to see them. That's the first issue. Second issue is because of that dependency on them, and perhaps, and I remember when I started my clinic, it was from scratch, and it's kind of building it up, and you're bolting things on and strapping things on with tape as you go along. As a result, everything depends on you. As the owner, you're wearing so many hats. That's right. So you're you're in charge of marketing, you're in charge of the admin, you're in charge of the accounting, you're also in charge of treating the patients. Like you're wearing so many hats. It's very dependent on you. We take you out of there, revenue drops, all of a sudden we can't solve these issues. And then as a result of that, we just can't step away.
Yes.
If you can't, and if you were to step away, then the overall issue is like things just come to a screaming halt. So if that's you right now, you're probably feeling trapped and overwhelmed, and we don't want that. And there is a way to solve this. And that's what we're going to be talking about in today's episode. So when we apply the 3 fixes we're going to share with you guys today in like higher level overview, we obviously go into a lot of depth of helping our clients with that inside our program. That's why we exist, other than being clever, handsome, and courageous and comedic.
Oh, comedic. I like it.
What else can we add in there? I might be pushing my luck. Kind. Oh, okay. We've got lots of things going on for us.
We do.
We're real podcast catchers, right? So what happens when we apply the fix? What's the benefit? What happens?
Well, rather than the business being dependent on you, whether it be marketing, whether it be your revenue, whether it be treating, whether it be systems and processes, it can now be driven by team.
Yeah. No.
Okay. So I think it's rather than me, we now embrace we.
Oh, wow. Less me, more
we. So there's another t-shirt, Tristan, isn't it? Hashtag less me, more we.
Like that.
Where it's less dependent on you.
Just be careful not to say more we in this house, because Wolfie, my new puppy, where is he? Is he around here somewhere?
He's asleep.
He's been fully embracing the more we concept, as you've noticed over the last couple of days. So yeah, less we, Wolfie.
Less,
yeah. Context.
In this podcast episode, and for those listening, it's more we. More we is good. More we is good.
And so stepping away from it being dependent on you, the owner, more we driven, right? And then the solution to multiple hats and juggling and putting out fires is what?
Yeah, well, it less, rather than juggling too many balls, you're only focusing on one thing.
Yeah.
So less is better.
Less is more.
Less is more.
Yeah.
And less is better. Better and more. And more importantly, you're able to kind of step away with ease. An analogy I like to use here, it's a bit like when you drive.
Yeah.
And it says the business is far too manual. You know, like every gear change is dependent on you. If you're not in the right gear, it doesn't move properly. Whereas if you've got the first level up, is we go from manual to automatic. Now, I know if you're a car lover, then you obviously want the manual because it's a true experience of driving.
Yeah.
But if we just look at the point between...
Or an automatic DSG gearbox.
Yeah.
Same benefit.
But if you've got a manual going up to an auto car, well, then it's because you've now got leverage because the gear changes are done. So it's like, oh, I can just focus on this one thing because other things are taken care of. But then also, if you're going on a longer drive, it's also the element of cruise control. Then you don't have to worry about...
Cruise control.
Yeah. Well, then you don't have to worry about the gear changes are already being done. You know, the line, and even the car that we've got now, we've got these AI, which we talk about in another episode, but it's now got the lane control.
Lane assist.
Lane assist, yeah. So not only that, you've got all these elements in the car now where all you need to do is focus on the one thing because the steering wheel automatically moves. There's a braking system to let you know that there's going to be a car in front. So I guess it's really embracing the idea of more we is there's opportunities for leverage. It's a little bit easier. You can step away and only focus on one task because there's all these prompts happening in other areas of the business.
So, you know, like we've got, you're here in Adelaide right now. There's a reason for that. It's because we've got 2 days coming up, a workshop with our most elite clients. We call them Vanguard.
Yes.
And I was just looking at a message before from Belinda. She's a vet here in Australia, part of our Vanguard program. She's fabulous. And one of the things she said to me this morning was, after this event, she's taking 20 days off with zero contact from the clinic at all. And she's feeling like confident. She's feeling excited. And I think that's really cool because previously she hasn't been able to take the time out. She's been able to take time out, and perhaps you can, as the listening, take time out. But the whole time you're like, how are things going?
Yes.
Or so she's got the full confidence because we've systemized things so much. You can step away, have a wonderful time over the holiday break, and full confidence everything's going to be flowing. So that's what is totally possible. And you know, she's been with us now for just under a year.
Yes.
And like that's pretty rapid because she does run a multi-7-figure practice. So pretty rapid turnaround. So
biggest win is the most amount of time that she'll ever be taken off.
How good is that?
Yeah, in such a short turnaround. Because she's just implemented a few of the things that we're about to speak about.
Yeah, exactly. So let's jump into the first one, right? So like if we think about 3 main things we're going to focus on today, I'm going to go high level, we're not going to get into the how.
Yep.
What's the first thing? Like if you want to decrease the dependency of a clinic on you, the owner, what's the first thing we should do?
Well, if we're going a step further from me, it's all about we rather than me. Well, therefore, that presupposes that we need a we.
Yes.
So therefore, the very first thing we're going to be speaking about is how the talent that you can leverage off. So it's leverage, point number 1, leverage talent.
Leverage talent.
Which is out of the people that you have around you, you know, what are their strengths? What are their genius spaces? How can I put them into a space that they can act really naturally in? Because one person's normal is another person's amazing.
Yes.
So rather than you wearing all the hats, it's how can you actually bring someone else in that has their natural talent, that they can do things with ease in order to actually, for you to benefit from.
Yes, 100%. And I like what you said there, like, how do we get them into their genius space? And really, and we'll spend another full episode on this. We'll talk about who, not how.
Yeah.
So it's like, if there is something that you're doing right now, who can do that rather than how can you do that? Like that's a really good default, right?
Yes.
Like you said, someone else's, and someone's normal, someone else is amazing.
Yep.
So your average in an area might be someone else's amazing in that area. And that's what we need to get you out of, right? Like we need to get you, the owner, out of those things that, like we think about juggling balls and putting out fires. We want your focus to be on vision and leadership.
Yeah.
Right. And everything else we want team to be doing, or AI to be doing, or technology to be doing, or an outsourced business to be doing, and so on.
Yeah. And it's also embracing that person to be able to do that particular task. So it's about the founder and you listening, actually letting go to a task. So when we say one person's normal is another person's amazing, what actually you think is really a hard task to do that you might be competent at doing, but it takes up a lot of energy, a lot of time. So even though the task is done well, even if you just pass that on to someone else, they might actually be able to do it quicker, easier, more effectively, more efficiently.
And more enjoyably.
Absolutely. But also just even thinking about, we're so controlling to certain tasks that we feel that we have to do it all.
Yeah.
But in fact, when we actually just...
You don't have to do it all. You need to do like...
When you have the courage to just let someone else do it and realize, they can do it quicker than me, more effectively than me, more efficiently than me, and I didn't have to put any time, energy. It was just taken care of.
Yes.
There's an element of
calm.
Yeah, a bit like, again, like the car. It's just one less thing to take care of. I can just focus on the other things. So it's about I pose the question to anyone listening right now, who do you have in your current team that you could perhaps outsource or delegate a particular task to that would free you up a little bit more, that you could really leverage the talent around you? I think that's really important.
So it's really valid. Like, we have to leverage talent. We've got to leverage time. And in order to make that happen, let's jump into point number 2, which is what makes that a reality. Because I know that a lot of you are listening going, yeah, but we call it butt face.
Yeah, butt face.
Right? And we're like jumping to like, yeah, but how? But how? But how? Well, you just leave that to us. All right. So point number 2 is, systems and operations. Right? How do we systemize those tasks, right? So if we want to decrease dependency on anyone, any individual person, it might even be not even about decreasing dependency on you as the owner, it might be decreasing dependency on someone else on the team, right? In order to do that, we need to have a systematic process, like an SOP, a standard operating procedure of what if this task was to be done by an outside actor, like an actor steps into the business and they're going to do it better than you or better than I, Dave, where would they start?
Yeah, well, I think it's having a paint-by-numbers approach. So I've got young children. My youngest is starting to learn. He's picking up a paintbrush, and we've got these big sheets he brought home from kindergarten, and it was like we had all the little pots of colours, and then you had a wonderful picture. It was a Christmassy picture because it's the time of the year. It's Christmassy. It was a picture with a Grinch. So there's reds and greens and whites and yellows and stuff on it, but every colour had a number. So you knew exactly, well, that goes there, and that goes there, and that goes there. And even though it was a very important, it's literally a paint-by-numbers approach. The other example I like to give is like what you called it, the alien test or the stranger test, is when you have a system or an SOP, can someone who absolutely has no clue about the role follow the recipe and actually build the meal or build the recipe from start to finish?
It is a recipe, isn't it? It's like cooking a meal.
It is. And the other example of is like Subway. You go into the Subway store, not the Subway Underground, the Subway food store. And it's such an interesting, because it's like a conveyor belt. They are very systematic, because you go in, the very first thing you do when you go to you start at a certain particular side of the chain, or I was going to say restaurant, but it's not. It's like a food takeaway. But go in.
I think they refer to themselves as a restaurant, but they're a chain. Yeah,
they're a chain. Anyway, you start a particular side, and the very first thing is, it's like, well, what type of bread? Right? And then it's like, you choose your type of bread. Then it's like, all right, well, do you want this size or this size?
That's sizist.
Yes. And then it's like, well, no,
the size doesn't matter.
It's everything. It's all about fit.
Okay.
All right. So
controversial.
Absolutely. So what size do you want? Then it's like, right, great. What filling do you want? Then it's like, do you want that fresh or toasted? It's great. Do you want cheese on that? Blah, 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 blah. And you go all the way through. So it's a paint by number. And by the end of it, you've completed that conveyor belt and have got the outcome that you want. Yeah. So for everyone listening, it's like, well, systems and processes, it's about documenting exactly how you do that task, that running commentary that you have, and make it, is it paint by numbers?
Yes.
Can it pass the stranger test?
Yeah.
And by passing the stranger test, it's about, do you have a recipe from start to finish that allows someone to go from not knowing how to do it to completely having the job done to the standard you would actually expect?
I love that. So systems and processes.
Yes.
That enables us to get the leveraged talent to be doing the right thing.
Correct.
And then the third thing to focus on, and this is a really big concept, we're going to just go over the surface of it right now, is it's building founders' flow. So if we bring in the right people, leveraging the right talent to do things that, free us up, our team, and we do this a lot, and we're going to free you up as the owner. Then we bring in the SOP so that the team member knows how to do it. We've got the right who to do it the right way, the who to do it the right how. And then finally, it's about founders flow.
Absolutely.
Which is, well, if you freed up your time, where does your time go?
Correct.
Because you said before, Dave, and it's really valid, it's, well, if I'm letting go of that, it's like, how do I let go? I have a lot of trouble with this personally, and I'm getting a lot of help from you on this. If we're going to let go of these things that will become habit, where does our attention now go?
Yeah.
Like, where is our genius space as the owner, as the founder? Where do we channel our attention? And Founders Flow is about a couple of things. It's like, where do we bring the best value? Where do we bring the best value when it totally lights us up and it's effortless and it makes a massive impact to the business? And then for me, at least, I have to schedule that, really. Like, schedule, here's where I do this process. Here is what I'm doing now. It's like, and I described it to you and Sarah, my business partner, about, it's a little bit like addiction therapy. Like, if I was a smoker, which I have not been, I imagine it much be like, if you're going to quit smoking, then you go to Nicorette.
Yep.
And then you come down to like patches. Nicorette, Nicobate, I'm not sure what they're called. But you're coming off as addiction. And business ownership is addiction, ultimately, because we've started it from nothing, we've built it up, and then it's like we're doing all these things. And there's some sort of identity involved, and there's a value, and there's a payoff. We get to save the day. Isn't it fair that I say that?
Yeah.
And so this is me speaking about myself, but I also know that business owners say this to me as well. And so, well, how do we get you into flow when everything's been dependent on you for so long and you've been able to get in there and save things and you're becoming so addicted to the stress, you don't even know you're addicted to it. How do we then get you into flow? And so it's about the identification then of where do you bring epic value and where do your team need you the most? And then how do we structure that? Right. Do you want to speak to that point?
Yeah, but then also to add to that point, and to add to those great points is, if you think about you showing up at your best, which is, if you're doing a whole bunch of things right now that because the business is too dependent, you're doing it because it's default, not by design.
Default, not by design.
And we want it to be it's designed, not by default. Because we do a task inside when people come, or practice owners come to us, in the first 90 days, we can guarantee easily that we free up 8 hours of time.
Yeah, easily.
And there's a whole process that we do within that.
Yeah.
But it's essentially this. It's not about taking those 8 hours and going to the beach house, or golf course, although that might be great.
So one of our members, that is her goal in the first 90 days, is to free up that one day
on the Friday to go to a beach house.
To go to a beach house.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But even if you just imagine this now, if you could take a whole 8 hours and repurpose those 8 hours into things that right now you're probably shooting all over yourself.
Yes.
Should be doing this, could be doing that. I would love to do this. I'd love to do that.
Shoulda, woulda, coulda.
Shoulda, woulda, coulda. But even when you say, I want to do things, but I can't because of the default, there's that stress and anxiety and heaviness, versus if you free yourself up, there's that lightness and energy and purposefulness. And I don't even know if that's a word, but you get the idea.
No, it is. Well, it is now.
It is.
You're also a creator of language.
That's it. But I think even just to this point, if it's by design, think about if we're now get you doing even just 2, 3, 4 hours of activities and tasks that brings that energy, that lightness, that productiveness. Even think about how much more people would benefit around you. If we get the you that's a bit grr and a bit stressed, well, how is everybody benefiting? But if we get the lightness,
that's the guy we don't want to be.
Yeah.
Right? And we all know that we go there when we're not in the right zone.
But everything 10x's because of not necessarily what you do bring, or the direct, what happens is a direct effect.
Yeah.
But it's also the indirect effect of the benefit of you being in flow too.
So this just reminds me, so right now, are you enjoying this episode?
Loving it.
Me too. And so yesterday I was preparing for this, and what are we going to talk about today? And I sat there for hours planning out what we're going to be covering in our content coming up, and it felt effortless. And I had a lot of fun. And now here we are, hopefully bringing value and in flow.
Yeah.
And that's what it feels like when you're in Founders Flow. And I'm working on this constantly because it's still actually quite a new concept to me, because I get dragged back into old things and I need support from you and Sarah to get out of that. But as I'm preparing this yesterday, I'm in full flow. I'm loving this. I'm having a really good time. And it's just, time flies by. But if I hadn't been doing that, then we'd be missing out on doing this right now. We wouldn't bring the impact to our audience. And so if you guys are listening to this podcast or watching us on YouTube and you're enjoying it, then this is possible because we've been able to free up my time and Dave's time. And you think about, what is it that you could do if you were able to free up more time, and how much happier would you be? And I had the full knowledge that everything was flowing beautifully yesterday. In fact, we brought on a wonderful client yesterday. I wasn't involved in that process. And in the past, I'd be like, I need to be involved in this, and I need to handhold that new client and whatnot. It turns out the people on the team that are better at it than me.
Absolutely.
Yeah, which is pretty awesome. So I'm just going to summarize what we've covered today. Dependency is something which I think is by default, like you said, not by design. But it's also, you need to make the decision and decide. Like, hey, this is actually not serving me or those around me anymore. And then what comes first? Like, how do we do it? And that's the challenge, isn't it? Like, where do we start to become less dependent? So let's look at it like this. Like, firstly, leverage some talent.
Yes.
Like, bring on a who, even if it's just freeing you up for some admin, you can find them very, very easily, a virtual assistant and so on. Number two is let's systemize the operational processes. And then finally, this isn't the right order, by the way. So each of these three sections we're talking about comes under the banner of scale business inside our world. And under each section, we've got three main cores.
That's right.
So we think about leverage talent, systemize operations, and founders flow. There's three major topics under each. And under each of those three major topics, we have a number of tactics and strategies. But if we think this globally, just follow right now, find a who. Like leverage talent. Number two, systemize operations. And number three, get into some more flow.
Yes.
And you commit to that, and all of a sudden things are massively, massively different. So make sure that's your goal, guys, for 2025 and beyond. I've loved bringing this to you guys in today's episode. I hope you've loved it as well, Dave.
Oh, it's been awesome. Can't wait for the next one.
Me too. Well, I'll see you like right back here in a couple of minutes when we record the next one.
Great.
Yeah.
It's like who it does.
I might even do an outfit change and get funky.
Oh,
yeah, like I don't know, get crazy. Bring my A game. Guys, if you've loved this episode, and I hope you have, and I trust you have, please like, please share, please send it to a friend of yours who owns a business inside of healthcare, because they're going to benefit massively as well. It is because of you guys listening and watching that we can actually spread the word more and make a greater impact. And that's our genius space, is bringing this to you guys so we can help more people. So thank you so much for joining today, and we'll see you inside the next episode. Over and out. Bye for now. Ciao, ciao. Arrivederci. Buonasera. Ciao, ciao.